Hey guys, T-sportline here with another one of our install series. Today we're going to show you how to install your very own Superwinch SX12 winch on a Tesla Cybertruck using our CTX bumper. Let's get into it. All right, taking a look at what we have on our table, we have our Superwinch SX12 SR. The SR stands for synthetic rope. There's also the metal cable version. We have our controllers, a corded remote, and a Bluetooth remote. For the Bluetooth remote, that only comes with the SR. We will be sending a kit to basically retrofit the normal 12SX for the Bluetooth remote. We'll dive into that later. We got our hardware, aluminum Haas style fairlead, clevis hook, and all appropriate wiring. Let's get into the tools. For this install, we'll need various basic tools such as a ratchet and some sockets. I used a 16, 13, 10, and 8 with an extension. We have two 13mm wrenches, Phillips head screwdriver, a 6 and 2.5 Allen key, and then a couple different types of pliers. Let's hop into it. First thing we'll do with our SX12 winch is we're going to remove the 4 screws that hold on the top hat. Now we're doing this because we need to essentially relocate this box behind the winch in order to have the winch body fit within the CTX bumper. So we're going to undo these 4 screws to remove the top hat and loosen up some of these larger 13mm bolts that hold the wires in. Then we're going to undo the 4 that are holding the top hat together. With the top hat opened up, we can undo some of these plastic cable ties to give us a little bit more clearance and a little bit more room. Now the main difference between the SX12 and the SX12 SR, besides the line type, is actually this box right here. In the SX12 SR, this is Bluetooth enabled, allowing us to use our Bluetooth controller. On the regular SX12, we're gonna need to replace this box in order to use Bluetooth. For more details on this install, you can go to Superwinch's website. Looking at the back of the winch, note what color wires go where. We got yellow, blue, red, and our ground. If you forget the orientation, you can look at the manual and it has a nice schematic showing which color goes where. We're going to undo all of these to allow us to move the top hat. With these wires removed, we can undo our final clip and move the whole assembly over. Looking at the exploded top hat, we can end up pulling this 2-pin connector through and route it out through the front. Right before we start reassembly. Get everything nice and snug. With our top hat now closed, we can grab our winch control box mount bracket. Essentially, we're going to mount it just like this, the wires towards the closed side. What you're going to need to do before you mount anything up is you're going to need to push these wires just a little bit down, kind of give them a little bit of bend so that they can mount up nice and flush. Right over there. And we're gonna end up using our original hardware, some M5 nuts from the winch control box mount hardware bag, and our oversized fender washer that came with the Cybertruck winch mounting hardware for the Superwinch. These can be tightened down with an 8mm socket and your Allen head. You can take the Superwinch supplied square nuts and insert it into the feet of the winch. That'll be the last step before bringing it over to the truck. As a safety precaution, we're gonna put in one M10 bolt on the driver's side, rear, closest to the front, so that when we're crawling underneath and getting everything set up, the winch doesn't have any possibility of falling out. So with our top hat mounted in our basket, our winch mounted up with one bolt, we can pull it out and grab our basket in one go and feed our 3 wires, our blue, yellow, and red, up between this plastic piece and the winch plate. We can leave our long power wire to the side for now. We can then take our winch box mounting hardware and line up our brackets. You can mount 2 in the front and 2 in the rear. For ease of access to these top 3 bolts, you can reach in through from the winch plate, from the front of the vehicle. Makes it a heck of a lot easier than reaching in from the back. So looking from the underneath side of the CTX bumper, you see the pathway that we're gonna push our power line through. So you can see the light from the non-existent frunk, and we're gonna chase that light with our red power wire. This is the longest one. It's nice to have a buddy up top to catch it. If not, if you're working solo, then you can just shove it up as far as you can and you'll find it spooled up there. Popping up top, we can see that we have our power cable right here. And I'm just gonna route it underneath this existing power line, under and over this way, so that it's ready to mount up when we get our battery in place. We're gonna pop under and kind of do the same thing with the ground line. So coming up top, you can see we have our winch and our wires all in the same location. We have our color-coded posts, red, yellow. This is black, but it's gonna go for the blue line. And then our ground post. We're gonna need the top hat ground and then our long battery ground to use that gray post right here. So we'll start with our 3 colored leads. So with the blue, yellow, and red wire loose, we can go and tighten those up. And we can cover them up with their respective rubber boot. Just like that, leaving only the ground exposed. So ensuring that we have our top hat ground wire, our battery ground wire, have that sandwiched. And I'm gonna have this heavy gauge ground wire kind of off at an angle, going down and towards the passenger side. From here, I'm gonna feed my cable through and route it up the same path as my power wire, up to the battery. And last but not least, a little small connection right there. We can then push our winch back into place, making sure that the wire's not getting caught. You can slide the winch into place and start to thread in our M10s. We're gonna snug these up and then take them up to 40 foot-pounds. And next, coming up top, we can remove the remaining slack we have in our ground wire and route it alongside our power cable. And we're gonna zip tie it as needed. And with that, we have our SX12 winch installed and mounted. We have our top hat relocated and our power and ground wires coming through the top. If you find that these wires are rubbing on some sheet metal or, just in contact with some metal, we include a 6-inch section of braided cable cover that you can add for an extra level of protection. Next thing I'm gonna do is add on the CTX fascia. Now that's covered in another video. For the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna show you how to mount the Superwinch. So go to our channel for the bumper cover install. All right, so now we have our CTX fascia installed over our winch and our CTX power supply installed. Again, that's not the scope of this video. This video is more about the winch install. So if you wanna find out how to install the fascia or the battery, then you should go to our YouTube page for more information. Let's dive right in to the fairlead and see how to install that. Our CTX bumper was designed with a lot of adjustability to accommodate different size winches. And so there is movement in and out the bumper has, and we need to note that so that we make sure that we're not gonna bottom out our fairlead bolts into the front of the winch. Now, this is the bolts that Superwinch supplies. In our fairlead hardware kit, we have 3 different sizes along with some washers so you can find the optimal amount of spacing for these threads. So for our fairlead, I'm gonna go with our 20mm button head bolts, as that gives us the most optimal spacing, and we're not gonna be running into the front of our winch. Moving up topside, we can look at our leads and get them wired up. I showed you kind of a routing path of what I did inside the frunk. Now, depending on what routing path you choose, you might need to optimize that for how you get through this plastic firewall. Maybe you need to get a little more slack or a little less slack just to get your optimal amount of space. Taking the strap off. This container. Positive. Flush. Do our ground strap. Put the cap right back on. Strap it back up. Putting on the finishing touches, we're gonna start off with our clevis hook. So we'll take the cotter pin out, slide out the pin. Pin goes in, cotter pin goes in, rotate it. So after a little bit of working with this thing, I was able to get it to lip over, and I cut off the excess there with just a regular pair of pliers to make it look clean. Now we can move on up to our remote controls. There are 2 remote options for the Superwinch. We have a corded remote and then a Bluetooth remote. If you opt for the corded remote, then you're gonna have to plug in this plug to the top hat that's mounted below and store this within the CTX fascia. If you're going with the Bluetooth remote, then you can just put it in your center console or your glove box. To operate it, we're gonna hold both the in and out buttons at the same time until the center light illuminates red. That means we're on. And from there, you can operate the winch in and out. Make sure that since this is battery operated, that you turn it off after each use. You can turn it off by clicking both buttons and wait for that red light to turn off. And like that, you're ready to go wheeling with your very own Superwinch SX12 SR. All right guys, that's how you install and use the Superwinch SX12 in our CTX bumper. Give a like or subscribe or comment down below and tell us what you think. Happy winching.